We're going to call to order this meeting of the Township Board of Trustees for Tuesday, November 25th, 2014. If everybody will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before us, we have our agendas presented. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members or department heads?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to add false alarms under Administrator number 2.
Is there anything else? Okay. The agenda will stand as amended, and we're going to start with the Sheriff's report, snow ban parking issues. I'm not sure, Lisa?
That's Mr. Iacino.
Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I talked with the Sheriff's Office, and the one small storm that we had, that you had put in the parking ban last week. Several cars on the streets that we constantly have the same problems with. Just looking for some advice from the board or the Sheriff's Office on what's the best way that we can get these cars moved. They'll park right in front of the signs that we have posted on a lot of the streets.
We have the authorization.
I just don't have time to get all these cars put. I'm not plowing too, you know. It's looking for a better way that we can get these done, and talking with Bill, and we come up with some suggestions maybe.
What are?
I think we talked about, there's quite a few roads that are kind of the repeat offender roads. You know, we had a list of those roads, kind of knowing ahead of time when we are notified when the snow parking ban is in effect. You know, we can go to those roads first and take a look and see, you know, what's going on over there, how many cars, and enforce it, you know, knowing ahead of time where those roads are. So if there's a couple like Spangler, I think was one that we had spoken of.
That's always bad. We towed several cars there. They're still back right?
Still going.
They're still doing it, so I think if Joe got a list together and got it to us, that way when we're notified of the parking ban, we have it's in effect now. Here's the list of offenders. So when the guys are out and about in those areas, they can hopefully go through and see if they're see what's out there and act accordingly.
If they are, what are you just taking them, or are we still going to tow them?
I think the thing is, in the past, we've tried to play nice and warn them, and some of them still haven't moved them. Then we went back and ticketed them, which folks have pled, you know, will you waive it? To which we've said no, because it's a road hazard, and so forth. And then I think last year, there was I thought a significant number of them that we ultimately ended up
We towed at least 20 cars.
towing because your department, along with
Sheriff's Department.
yeah, Lisa got inundated with calls screaming foul, but you know, I mean, the board's got the obligation to communicate to the public that, but the public and the citizens also have a responsibility to pay attention.
I wanted to ask Eric a question. Can we put in a seasonal snow ban if snow exceeds 2 inches? That's always in effect. Or it's only in effect when, like, the Scott calls.
The statute speaks specifically to a snow ban, not like a winter ban. It talks about the snow being in excess of 2 inches, etc.
So like,
Well, Candy has those signs posted all the time. It says if snow exceeds.
So do we.
do.
That's what ours say too.
They're parking right in front of
right
it.
in front.
Yeah.
Do we have to announce that to enforce it?
Yeah, that's the whole statute says, and that's, we do it every time. We talk, it comes out on the.
So we have to post, and we have to
say,
say,
Yeah.
It goes WHBC, Canton Rev, North Neighbor Dude.
You notify the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, they're actually the first ones I call.
To put it into effect, 'cause otherwise, they
Sorry.
can claim they didn't have notice of the effect. And the notice is really constructive notice rather than actual notice, but it is the notice that someone has that protects their,
So basically it activates the sign.
yes.
we've tried to get it out as early as we can. You know, we don't wanna cry wolf and we don't get the storm either, so that's always you know, so
I guess it
that's
was
always
no
on
different
Sunday.
Yeah, or Saturday, with
Yeah,
the
Saturday,
ice and
right.
so forth, this was gonna be telling.
Yeah.
Who makes the call? You make the calls?
Well, the both of
No, I mean,
us,
Joe on papers, I'll call Scott.
For the
Scott
snow
will
ban,
call
who
me
calls on
and
the
say,
vehicle there?
I can call the sheriff, or I can actually
But you
have the
have to-
right to get it towed.
You have to literally have a run of a road guy say, I'm at 3520
Well,
Spangler.
it's, you know, I can't be in all the areas, they usually call me and say, hey, I got so many cars down, I can't even get my truck through. So, you know, we go down and that's when I did tow all them cars on Spangler.
But you have to go down, can't we just tell the sheriff if they're gonna come and start towing?
Well, we can, but are they too busy? Do they have thousands of accidents?
Right,
everywhere?
that's-
You know,
that's-
it's a combination.
Right, the call volume with crashes.
Why don't we do this, if we activate a snow ban, okay, at that point, why can't we immediately, if we know the streets where the problems areas are, is that we send the tow trucks directly out there?
Have any of you been down Kaiser by any chance? There are so many cars parked on that street and I barely get my pickup truck through the next while.
So now,
Well, I know that- I know
it's a
that.
safety issue for chief on the fire EMS guy.
Sure.
But from a towing aspect, we got 3 companies that were within our rotation. And I'm sure they want the business.
Oh yeah, they'll come out, that's for sure.
And we've
But
done
I mean,
that. I think
but if
we
these
have
are repeat
towed
offenders who
plenty.
tow their cars enough, they're gonna get the point sooner or later. This is a safety issue more so than anything else.
Lisa, what's your opinion on this? Because you're gonna get the phone calls.
I had told Joe, he's got a list of streets that are always problems, to draft a letter, or have Teresa draft a letter, I'll look it over, send it preemptively to those residents, and then tow. So
agree.
if there's roads that are problems, then you call the tow trucks, you know snow ban's out, it's snowing, your guys are going out, and say, go to this street, this street, this street. But if you send a preemptive letter and say, listen, historically, your road has been a problem, or to the neighborhood association, and this is what will happen, and they've been warned, that's being more than fair. Or, our guys are gonna have accidents, the chief's not gonna be able to, well, he'll get there. I mean, the chief will get there, but I think that's really what we should do.
I think I do like the facet of a preemptive season letter to where we know those repeat violators are, because I mean, the taxpayers try to be respectful to a degree, but in the same aspect, they need to be held responsible
Right, it's
for
the same
listening.
thing year after year after year after
Yeah.
year.
If we said, I mean, I would say, try to get something drafted
If
ASAP.
she writes it up, I'll look at it, I'll work with zoning, we'll get the letters out.
Target the,
You send these letters certified receipt.
You don't want that
Expensive, it's
expense.
expensive.
You're talking $6 a letter.
We
How
can do
many are there?
certificate of
Do a
mail,
certificate of mail, it's like $1.
yeah, we can do that,
So we know that they received it.
yeah,
They got delivered.
Well, we don't know they received it, but we have proof that we mailed it.
yeah. That works.
And someone
It's in
can
our
say, well, we
newsletter
never
every
got
year.
it.
why don't we take a look at the volume?
Probably, it's on our website too. So, I mean, it's out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's ignored because they feel comfortable that they can park there.
Social media webs, I mean, we hit every
Yeah, we'll blast it out and we can do a press release that they'll print it.
Because we know if we hit one of those park vehicles,
Yeah,
then our drivers are,
Oh, then they're, yeah. We'll go
It's
that
essentially
way.
The whole
It's gonna
plethora.
be a no-win situation with certain individuals potentially, which, again, the roadway's not meant to be a parking lot.
you know, we don't have every street posted, but streets we do have posted are the worst ones. And when you put that in, that involves all the streets that
Yeah.
that parking ban is, even the ones that aren't posted. Right, correct on that?
I believe you are.
I thought we talked through that.
I think we looked at that.
We just couldn't post every single street.
Right.
All right, we'll work on that together.
All right, thank you.
That concludes the sheriff's report. Nothing for the detective's report or It is going to take us to new business. I'm going to turn that over to our administrator, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you. Item number 1 is to authorize the purchase and payment of 4 2015 Ford Explorer Interceptors.
I will so move on new business number 1.
Second, Mr. Lino.
Discussion.
I do have Derek Leroy, who manages our Plain Township fleet. He has worked very hard with me the last couple of days on that. So first I want to say thank you, Derek.
Thanks for having me.
And if you go through your pages, you will see a vehicle mileage report and vehicle report that Derek put together for us. And he can speak better to the vehicles than I can, but if you look down through, you're going to see we have 5 2003s, of which several have 155,000 miles. One has 163. You'll see some very high mileage. So what that says is kudos to the Sheriff's Department for keeping these vehicles running, taking good care of them. But number 2, they are the very old, over 12-year-old Crown Victorias that Derek was saying they can't even get parts for.
As I say, pretty much some of these cruisers, I think you and I were just talking about before the meeting, some of these have actually, with the higher miles, or ones have already been sort of piecemeal from either ones we've scrapped parts off of that have been in accidents to, I know, was it even a year ago, we was over at the high school for a meeting and we saw a cruiser sitting up in the top and literally there was parts of it zip tied together, which,
Yeah, the white zip
I mean,
ties.
we don't need to have spit shine chrome and tricked out cruisers, but I mean, that's flat out embarrassing.
It is, and I know that some of those guys pull up at a light and they're laughed at, but the vehicles run.
I mean, there's also a safety element.
Correct.
When we're seeing zip tied piece parts,
No. And I do want to say that our board has worked diligently for the past so many years to purchase 2 vehicles a year. And our board also budgets very conservatively, which has left us in a very good spot this year to, and typically, you know, at this point of the year, we don't spend, but we're in a position where we can buy these vehicles. And already the vehicles are backed to January. So if we don't make this purchase now, it could be March or April.
that's the state likelihood of state pricing going up.
No, well, I think that we locked in because we just recently
Yeah,
purchased 3
well,
cars,
since
so-
I got the quote and said we're taking a look at it, so we're okay, since we're
But
looking at them right
come
now.
January 1.
It could change.
It could change.
State bid pricing.
And Derek, do you want to speak? We had talked about our fleet and the numbers, and Derek really educated me on,
I just want to mention that of the 19 that are marked, 10 of them have over 100,000 miles. And 4 of those have over 150, as she said. And those are the ones that are most likely, they're costly to keep going. And even if they're spares, if they get put in service, there's more likelihood that that could fail. There's times when we've had 3 of the spares actually being in use and only have 1 available if something else happens, especially during the winter months, this weather, accidents, plus with the high miles. So I think that what we want to do if you guys move forward, our recommendation is to keep the same number. So if you purchase 4 additional ones, is then to purge 4 of the worst out of the fleet, which are some of the ones that Ms. Campbell talked about. Just because they're costly, just like recently, we took some of the parts off of cars you took out of service last year to put on these, to keep these going. So we want to just take what's good if that's what you
Just
prefer.
clarify, because of the shape of the cars, these are not in a condition to be sold on gov deals or anything like that. These will be scrapped.
Yeah,
These
they
will be
really
sent to
are.
the scrap yard.
yeah, Derek and I talked, and he said he wouldn't feel comfortable, you know, selling these to somebody else, so they'll take what they can off, equipment-wise if they can, and then it'd be best really to scrap these.
You look at the year of the 2003s and the mileage on those, and the value is very minimal. I mean, it's scrap price is essentially the best that we can do, because people won't buy them with that kind of miles on them.
Scrap yard's gonna be a couple $100 a vehicle.
Yeah, our sheriffs are driving them. I mean, we're fixing that.
Right.
But,
Lisa, can you talk to, just for the sake of public record, anybody, the reason, I mean, the replacement cycle's gotten a little heavy over the last 2 to 3 years, actually dates back to, well, over 10 years ago, prior administrator,
administration, there was
financial
a-
conditions.
yeah, financial conditions, there was a lease option that was done, and at that time, I think 10 vehicles were leased and brought into the fleet. But then, which at the time, that's probably what had to be done. But then for many, many, many years, no vehicles were purchased. So then what happened was, when we took a look at it, we had all very old vehicles that all needed replaced. So this board has, over the last probably 3-4 years, been replacing at least 2 vehicles a year. We find ourselves in the situation where this year we're able to replace 4, which is good because we do have at least 4 vehicles that are not good in this fleet to replace. And then as Derek and I talked, we have a pretty solid fleet then. Probably not needing to replace a vehicle next year and quite possibly the year after. Giving us a pretty solid fleet for the first time in a long time.
Because a little more than half the fleet, 10 vehicles are over 10 years old, so you're looking at, if you put off buying new ones, you're gonna end up with 10 or 12 vehicles at one time, they're all bad, and then you're gonna be saying, how do we?
Yeah, and that's the situation that we came into, because again, we bought 10 released, and then it was just, see you later. And that may have been a sign of the Financial Times.
Well, the other thing too is, I was going back to a editorial that Mike Hinkey wrote not too long ago, where he compared what communities around Stark County are spending for police. I think this is something Plain Township and this board and previous board should be proud of. Just to give you an example, Plain Township spends $46 per resident for police coverage, and we have 28.5 square miles. Yeah, for $1.6 million. The city of North Canton spends $3.2 million. They have roughly 6.4 miles, so that's about a quarter of what we have, and they spend $183 per resident. And if you want to take that even up a notch, Jackson Township has 37 square miles. They're a little bit larger than us because they hadn't been eaten away with the annexation, but they're spending $225 per resident. So, at $46 per resident, even with equipment replacement,
Yeah.
we've been more than frugal.
Absolutely.
Figure $46 a resident, that's $4 a month.
Yeah,
That's pretty nice.
it's pretty
I mean,
awesome.
it's really good. There's only one other community that compared to ours, and that was the city of Greene, which also contracts with the Southern County Sheriff's Department by coincidence. And, but they're still spending $74 a year with the Southern County Sheriff's Department. We're at 46, so.
Yeah, and the key is that, when I made this, thought, oh my gosh, we're in the position where at the end of the year we can purchase cruisers. I literally called Derek yesterday and said, we're looking to purchase cruisers. Can you get all this information together for me? And it was less than a day that he and Captain George put everything together. And it was a lot to ask, and they probably were thinking, oh my God, it really was a big ask. And then, he came tonight, just like Detective Koenig. I call, he's there immediately. I mean, it's a wonderful partnership,
So on the outside of the initial equipment, the actual hardware, the kits that are gonna go in those, we're gonna do the dividers in all
Yes,
all 4
all
of these.
4 will have the dividers, so that if they need to take 2 people to the sheriff's, they don't have to call somebody for backup. They can both go in the one vehicle because they'll have the dividers. We're going to do the same trunk options that we do. They're going to be set like our last.
Little out.
Yes,
It's the same when we looked at,
yes,
uh,
all set up the
these-
same.
when you and I looked at those, and we thought,
Yeah.
this is what we like to change.
Yeah, it's got the Bluetooth, the backup.
Nice.
It's going to be set up exactly the same.
Perfect, good job.
Yeah.
I think those dividers are working out well, the split seat, because then they can haul two, even, hostile folks in the same vehicle.
Well, it keeps our cars out on the street. We're not bringing
Right.
another one to the scene of an incident. They're
Right.
taking up 2 cars.
Right.
Is there any further
Good job,
discussion?
thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you.
We're glad to help in any way we can.
Any further discussion?
No, thank you, George.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Leo?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2, I'll turn over to Mr. Falk.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. My pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Marla Larson-Williams. She is from the United States Postal Service, striking from windy city of Chicago. She brought that wind with her yesterday, and they're all there today. So.
That brought the snow too,
Well,
so I
speak about,
apologize.
He's going to talk about what's known as the Northeast Waterworks Station Post Office. Most of us know it as the Spangler Post Office. So Marla, enjoy.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. It's my pleasure coming to the community. I was with the City of Canton last night, making a small presentation similar to what I'm doing here tonight. And it's mainly to inform the public. First of all, we're not closing the post office. A lot of people use that terminology, not closing. What's going on right now with the Postal Service is we're in financial situation just as much as other individuals and companies. And so what we are doing is taking a look at our operation. What can we do to streamline our operation, save costs, money, both in bricks and mortar as well as personnel. So what's going on in Canton is that both North Canton and the Waterworks Station were identified to bring the carriers from those 2 locations and bring them to our downtown Canton facility on Cleveland. Now, North Canton, their carriers are going to be moving later this week. I just got that informed to me this morning. And the ones at Spangler, the Waterworks, were moved several months ago. So the building on Spangler is about 10,000 square feet, and the Postal Service does own it. So it's tax exempt. So the positive, if you want to try to spin it, is our plan would be to put the property on the market for sale. Get it back into the private sector. It would then go back on the tax roll. There's one possibility. Another possibility is having someone buy the building and want us to stay there as a retail unit, what the customer sees, the P.O. boxes, the collection boxes out front, as well as the retail services. A sale leaseback is a possible situation. We just won't know until we begin to market the building. So my plan at this time is, when we go through this whole process, we will not leave the building vacant. Okay, it kind of looks that right now because we don't have all the vehicles going in and out. But we will not leave it vacant, number one. Number two, I've made some calls to see if we can get those potholes fixed in the parking lot for safety, safe for our customers coming in. So that should be done very shortly. There's a few other things on the building that need to be repaired right away. I've requested it. I'll stay on it. I just don't know. And Ms. Campbell, I'll let you know when I have that, as well as with Mr. Falk. But the reason for me to be here tonight is to explain a little bit of the process. Because we are a federal entity, there's certain stages that we need to go through. That's why I'm here tonight, is to explain the process. And anyone in the community, including the board, anyone can submit their comments to me during the next 15 days, your thoughts, your concerns of what we're proposing to do. And the way you get a hold of me is you write a letter, buy a stamp, and put it on, and send it. It's called revenue. And I do have a handout. I gave everyone on the committee up here a copy, and I also put some in the back of the room for anyone that wants, and it's got my mail address and so on. After the 15 days, I take a look at what has been submitted, then the Postal Service, make a decision, are we going to move forward? And moving forward then is the next step, and that is do some of the real estate due diligence on the building, get the building on the market, and start marketing it to sell. Just so that you have an idea, with North Canton, it's a leased facility. Our carriers will be moving out of there, like I said, at the end of this week. My lease, I believe, on that one is up in 2017, and I'll be looking for a new retail location for the North Canton Post Office as well. Now, I spent some time the last 2 days driving around the community. I know I'm from Chicago. I'd like to get a feel of the community, figure out what's going on with traffic, what are the traffic patterns, what's available on the market today. Hope that something may be available later when we're ready. But when we start to look for new locations, what I'll do is I'll come back to the community and say, we're looking for something now, and then when we get some submittals, we will submit another letter and post what locations are we looking at, and I'll list them A, B, C, D. There's no order of preference in that. What it is pretty much, who was the first to get it to my desk is A. And it keeps on going. And we ask for comments for 30 days from people. Then with that information, I bring it to an internal committee, and we take a look at all the buildings that have been submitted for consideration, and then we would make a decision as to where are we going to put the new retail. The good news for something like this is the waterworks facility, as I said, is not the best maintained, and I apologize for that. Wherever we go, we'll have fresh, new, build out. We'd be looking for a 5-year lease with a 5-year renewal. The main concern I have at any location is how do we get our customers in and out safely without causing a traffic problem? I'm sure you'll appreciate that, of causing accidents with people trying to get in and out. So I will be working very closely with Mr. Volk and Ms. Campbell when we're going through that process, and I'm available at any time. How do you get in touch with me? I understand. I am also available by phone, but that's the process that this 2-page thing will have your eyes roll. But the purpose is to let everybody know what we're doing. All right. The other thing I'd like to just mention briefly is the Postal Service is not financed by taxpayer dollars. Literally, every building, every delivery you see is done by someone buying postage, buying our services. A lot of the public does not know that. We are also mandated by the way we're structured to deliver to every single address 6 days a week. And that means stopping at every address where there's mail to be delivered or picked up. We have to stop. So that's what's a little bit causing our little bit of pain, is that we take great pride in what we do, but it also takes money to make that happen. So, as I always say, buy 2 stamps, use 1. But I thank you, and if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to address them or try to address them.
Is this going to affect postal zip codes?
No, it will not. And in fact, if you have a P.O. box right now at Waterworks, when we relocate, the numbering would not change.
That would be minimum staffing down.
Right now at Waterworks, I think we have 1 or 2 window clerks and a very small staff. And I'm sorry, the space that we're going to be looking at is about 1,000 square feet. They say approximately 955, so I'll round it up to 1,000. Again, that's flexible. Depends on the space that we look at. Sometimes you may have to do 1,200 square feet depending on the configuration of the building or the space that we would be looking at. But 955 to 1,000 would probably be the minimum. We would also ask for 12 parking spaces. Now, obviously, the 12 is not just only parks for 8 hours. It's the purpose is to keep the traffic moving and allowing our customers to get to the front door and be able to leave.
Any idea on how the search for a new retail facility will actually impact? We've got a very tiny post office just down the road here up in Middle Branch in Diamond. Will that ultimately be impacted?
No, it should not. That facility is not at all included in this node study, as we call it. The one thing with these 2 projects that I'm currently working on, both the one on Spangler and North Canton, what I'm concerned about, and I'll be talking to our operational people, is maybe we need to rethink what we call our preferred area, and that is what are our north, south, east, west boundaries for each location because of the close proximity and the traffic patterns. And that's why I really enjoyed my time with Mr. Volk today, is to get an idea of what's available and what makes sense, both for North Canton and, because we don't want them right next to each other because that defeats the purpose, but at the same time we want it where it doesn't negatively impact our customers, the community either. So it's going to be a little bit of a, I don't want to say delay, but a little bit of a bubble while I work with our operations people to kind of rethink that. And I'll be, again, sharing that with Mr. Volk.
So your goal is to combine 4472 essentially and everything on this side with the city of North Canton's post office on Main Street?
Two separate buildings.
They are separate.
Two totally separate. What I'm concerned about is how close they are together. Only from a logistics standpoint. We want to be within the service area of that zip code. But again, when a lot of the area that my operational people gave me is residential, well, that doesn't really help. And there are some limitations on retail as far as there may be space available in a building. The question is, how do you get into the building, park, and have 12 parking spaces and have someone be able to back out and leave without causing an accident? Some of the buildings, both in the township and also in the city of Canton, don't have a whole lot of parking area, and that's a concern. At least what's available today. Again, who knows what's going to be available when I actually have a buyer for our building on Spangler. And there is that possibility that whoever buys it may want to, as we call it, sale lease back, and that means we would just carve out a portion of that building, renovate it, do some construction to make it work for us, and also then leave enough for the buyer to do whatever their plans are. But there's also some possibilities that if there's, and again, I'll work with Mr. Volk, there may be some properties that may be zoned properly but used for other type uses. Maybe we would need to go in and ask for a special variance for a post office use, a special use permit or something like that. Again, I look forward to really working with the community. We want to place the new location where it makes sense for everyone.
I would like to thank Ms. Larson-Williams for coming, and we did have a nice time together today. Had some fun, shared a few laughs, and also looked at a lot of different areas and different concepts on where the service areas could mesh and work best. So it was a well-spent time.
And I thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Sorry Chicago is bringing the snow, so I apologize, especially the snow balls. Have a good evening. Thank you again.
Okay, item number 3 is a resolution to authorize payment to the Treasurer of the State of Ohio for the Stormwater MS4 and annual discharge fee in the amount of $2,100 from Fund 01A26E.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Haas?
Yes.
And a new business.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Once again, takes us to our fiscal officer report. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Flax.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 1 is a request for a resolution by the board to authorize the payment of the pending warrant in the amount of $495,243.95 is attached.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal officer number 2 is a request for a resolution by the board of trustees to authorize the payment of the regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $220,000.
School authority payment.
Second. Second, Mr. Lino. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal officer number 3 is a request for a resolution by the board to authorize the payment for the following medical claims as provided by All Care.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal officer number 4 is the investment report.
Okay.
Fiscal officer number 5 is a request for a resolution by the board to authorize the payment for pursuant to the Affordable Health Care Act that established the transitional reinsurance program. The fee is $63 per life. Plain Township has an average of 173 lives covered for 2014. So we're asking for the resolution to authorize my office to pay this fee in the amount of $10,899 from the Fund 01A26.
Also move on fiscal officer 5.
Second, discussion from a transitional reinsurance, because this is such a convoluted thing. I mean, it's just for if somebody leaves,
Just something that
this is
we
like a
have
carry
to do.
cost until they get on to their,
I'm not sure about that since they're offered COBRA. It's something by law through the affordable health care that we have to do. Not so much understand, but it has to be done by a date in December or we're in trouble.
Is there anywhere where we can get, I hate to be the pain, but I mean, is there somebody that can give us a better
Yeah, we
explanation
got a
as to-
very long email about it, Anthony and I,
Just with deadlines bold.
with deadlines bolded.
Of course, let's send it like this act was passed, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I can get a better explanation.
This has to be done by when?
Well,
December when?
we have to pay it.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, the payment has to be done. We gotta actually certify.
We have to certify
By
it.
December 5th. But the payment needs sent essentially.
Outside of the fact that we've got to pay it, I'd still like to see as a follow-up.
The transitional
Some
reinsurance.
explanation, because, I mean, sitting up here, if I can't explain to a resident, you see, you approved $10,899 in transitional reinsurance that the federal government on Sam's enforcing our
Just
hand
have them
on.
call the hotline. I know. Yeah,
This just doesn't sit.
I'll get the explanation.
And what's the penalty if you don't?
Have to look at the form.
We'll have to look at the form, there's a pretty.
I mean, they probably explain what that is, but they won't explain what this is for.
Yeah, it was in the email, there's a pretty significant
I would say
penalty.
it would be.
That's
I have to
significant.
look it up. I don't know. I mean, trying to encompass and follow all the rules and regulations.
Yeah, I was more
Affordable
concerned
care,
about
pretty
that.
tricky.
I had to get out notices to every single employee that we offer them health care and have them signed off on it.
Transitional reinsurance, transitional means that you would have an employee that is a transitional, that mean, is this covering their COBRA payments? Is this
No.
what this is for?
Nothing covers COBRA.
So it's probably subsidizing somebody else's health care. Then it comes down to I'll disparagingly call for a roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
No.
And Mr. Hawes?
No.
Do that.
You
If you can get penalized.
had to vote yes.
I'm sorry, I have no
Okay,
problem spending 10 grand for something
Section
I don't know what it's for.
1341 of the Affordable Care Act established a transitional reinsurance program to stabilize premiums in the individual market, inside and outside of the marketplace.
So essentially, this is to subsidize premiums.
Yeah,
across the board.
it collects contributions from contributing entities, us, to fund reinsurance payments to issuers of non-grandfathered reinsurance eligible individual market plans. The administrative costs of
Basically, it's
operating
discounts
the
for
reinsurance
everybody.
program and the general fund of the U.S. Treasury.
So contributions typically really be willing to that.
Eric's gonna
This
look
is
at
not
it.
what-
We spent some time, you guys, do your thing.
Let's go
let me
on.
give it a
I got one yes and one
Can
no
we
vote
table,
here.
can we table it until the law director and come back to it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion to,
You don't need the motion, we'll just table it.
we'll table.
We'll come back to
it.
It's-
This doesn't, I just want an explanation.
That's right.
I'll let the comments be known.
Wow.
I'm not gonna.
I voted out.
Okay. The next one,
Number 6 is a letter from the Division of Liquor Control, just reminding the board that liquor permit renewal is coming up. If you have any objections to renewal of any liquor permits, we've got to make sure that we do the appropriate resolutions and send notice to the Department of Commerce Liquor Control.
I know one off the top of my head.
Yeah, we will have one that we're doing Detective Koenig on. We'll prepare the resolution.
is that over after 30?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll work with Mr. Williams, who's ignoring me.
For a very good reason.
We're gonna.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fiscal Officer 7A is a request for a resolution by the Board of Trustees to appropriate the additional amended certificate of estimated resources. This was for the $15,470.39 moved from the Park Development Development Fund back into the general fund.
I will so move.
Second.
7A.
Correct.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer 7B, again, is a request for a resolution by the board to appropriate the additional amended certificate of estimated resources that we passed at the last meeting as follows.
So move on fiscal officer 7B,
Second.
discussion,
Okay.
roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for a resolution by the board to authorize the refund for overpayments as for emergency medical services as provided by Ohio Billing.
So moved.
Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
And fiscal officer number 9, finally, is a request for a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the following transfers.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
And that'll conclude the fiscal officer's portion for tonight.
Mr. Fox. Going to take us to our administrator, EMS.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution to waive the cost for full-time Plain Township employees for Plain Township EMS transport.
Second, discussion. Lisa, do you mind just clarifying what?
Yes, if full-time EMS, or full-time employees are transported by our firefighter EMS and are billed, it's actually the township paying the bill through our insurance. And it's not the insurance, because the township pays the first $25,000 before we hit our aggregate. So we're actually billing the township, so
Let me ask you a
it
question.
doesn't make sense to do it that way.
I agree with that, but what if we have a part-time soccer supervisor falls down the steps or?
They're not under our insurance.
This is saying full.
Well, they're not under insurance, but they're working for us at the time. Are we gonna charge the employee?
Not their part-time, it's full-time.
That's up to the board. Oftentimes, those part-time people are under their, at least are under their parents' insurance, so they would be billed their parents' insurance, or whatever insurance plan they have, and it's covered that way. But when we bill somebody who has the Plain Township insurance, it's actually coming straight from the Plain Township medical insurance fund that's paying for it.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution to waive Mr. Robert Soul's false alarms, as upon further investigation, they were actually legitimate alarms.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion.
After further discussion, after further investigation, I do have actually specific vandalism reports that were filed. He was building a new house. It has been vandalized numerous times. He's had multiple issues with trespassing, just a plethora of problems at his home there. So he actually had very legitimate alarms that were true alarms that I received from the sheriff's office.
Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
And who seconded that? Mr. Hawes?
Mr. Gevasis.
Mr. Gevasis.
Do you have the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. That'll conclude the administrator. Nothing from fire chief or our road superintendent. It's going to take us to the zoning department. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Falk.
Thank you. I'll be happy to pick up the slack for our road and fire folks here. Item number one before you, we have 3 nuisance abatements. This time they all happen to be junk motor vehicles. One on Arboretum Circle, one on Columbus Road Northeast, and vacant lot on Region.
I also move on zoning 1A through C.
Second?
Discussion?
And this one here on Arboretum Circle has been there forever. Because Joe, this is when we went out there and it was up to its doors in water.
June, yes.
So this has been sitting here since June.
That's the
I
picture.
remember it being out there, you know,
We-
it could have been before that.
We got a, well, we didn't yet get a call. We got a call regarding trash and 2 vehicles on site actually. So they removed the trash in 1 vehicle and this one was left. It appears that there was a former tenant who just, when they left the area, they left the car. So it's a waterlogged old Jag.
Man, it's more than waterlogged.
Yeah. Well, that would be polite.
When the flooding went on, I remember.
It was up to its
It was
windows.
over, it was over there. That was when I was chasing the kids off the electrical substation.
Yeah.
Wasn't exactly feeling too
Yeah, you
comfortable
were running through the
myself.
electrical charged water, I saw it. In your flip flops.
I got the kids out of there. All right, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Thank you. Zoning number 2, we have a structure at 2928 Mount Pleasant Street Northeast, and this is east of Middle Branch, right next to the railroad tracks plant, tucked over behind the fireworks place there. We have, actually, believe it or not, the site's improved the way you see it from when we first investigated it. It had multiple vehicles that were taken away. The house is beyond repair, so we in the fire department have looked into this issue and we're recommending go ahead with the demolition of this structure.
Now, in these pictures, the doors and the windows are wide open. Are we gonna
They're all,
secure
no, we're gonna, it's impossible to even put them there, they're gone.
I mean, but are we gonna board this up or?
No, we're gonna demolish it. This is a demolition.
Now, how long is that gonna take?
Well, we've got to advertise it for 30 days.
Well, in the meantime, in the next 30 days, what happens if somebody gets in there, starts a fire, somebody gets, I mean, don't we have a responsibility to secure this building area?
We have done that in the past with some of our, I mean, it's not a big deal to do that. I'm not sure I would like to say we have a legal obligation to do so, but we certainly can.
Is this something by chance fire can use just as
The building's so unsafe, it's so dilapidated, it's off the beaten path, obviously. This actually pictures a pretty good picture. There was overgrowth, there was multiple cars which have been removed, so it actually been cleaned up a little bit since we first was advised of this, but it isn't.
You don't think there's kids hanging out in there?
Yeah, the neighbors across the street have been kind of keeping an eye on it. They have not noticed anything like that. They live in Lake Township, but we've been in touch with them and they've kind of been keeping an eye on it, to be quite honest. They haven't noticed anyone hanging around. So that's, and we can certainly,
from the sheriff's office? I mean, there's no noted incidents.
That I'm aware of, no. No.
I think the taxes.
it's back there so far.
I think the taxes have been up.
Taxes are current.
Current.
Yeah.
I mean, my only concern is, I mean, we were all teenagers once. We'd have found some place like this, okay? I mean,
Well, you went to a different school district tonight.
No, this is a different age today. They want warm comfort. There's no furniture. I mean, this would not be ideal place for teenagers.
You know what I mean?
But, yeah, it's up to you if you want us to throw some.
well, I'm being told that the building's unsafe,
Yeah,
it's wide open, and there's
And
nothing
it's
to...
been like that for Lord knows how long. Did you have any idea? Years?
Yeah, do you know how to use it?
And it's so far off the
Yes.
beaten path. I mean, I'm not even sure if anybody would even know it's even there unless they were told it was there. As far as from a board up, I'm not sure.
And we're gonna move on as quickly as possible. We do have to advertise it for 30 days.
How long it's sat out there? Has it been to even spend time on it.
Yeah, the neighbors across the street, they do keep a pretty good eye on it. I mean, they monitor it pretty good. There's only the only one back there, so.
Well, so we gotta advertise this for 30 days.
Correct.
Then, as far as the demolition, how long after the 30 days till it's demolished?
Well, what I want to do is in this 30-day process,
Line up the contract.
move ahead, get the contractor going, and have a resolution to hire the contractor right at the end of that 30 days. And the contractor's going to know that we want him to move on this.
So 30 days.
30 days,
Then
plus
we got
another
to
couple
make
of
our
days,
trustee
30 to
meetings.
45 days.
45 days. I'm fine leaving it alone, because your one's gonna go on and then.
All right, we're going to keep moving on this. And the owner is well aware and exactly okay with it. They're not well off. Yeah, they're very elderly, not well off physically and or wealth-wise. They understand, and we've already talked to them about setting up a payment plan with the treasurer's office. This will go on taxes, and they'll work on paying it off.
Okay. Roll call.
I don't even know if I don't think I have a motion.
Or I'll make a motion. I thought we'd gotten into discussion. I'll make a motion then on zoning 2.
I'll second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Leo?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. And zoning number 3, we've been looking at the fee schedule for fees we charge in the zoning office, and what we're looking at is making some changes, minor changes for items that have not been changed since February of 2007. Basically, what we're looking at is making changes in the per square foot price that we charge for new construction, residential additions, accessory structures, that type of thing. We currently are at 7 cents per square foot, and we're recommending that we go to a 10 cent per square foot. As an example, if for a 2,500 square foot house, that would make a change in the permit fee of $75. So for something that's a pretty expensive proposition, it's not a huge increase in fees necessarily.
How's the recommended
And that
fee increase compared to?
It's a little higher than Perry's, who was in the process of reviewing theirs. This is the same as Jackson's, and Lake's is just a little bit lower.
And this will help, between these fees, these will help make the zoning office ultimately more self-sustaining and not as reliant on the general
Right.
fund through administration.
Right, and those are the first footage fees. We're also recommending a change in our application fees for Board of Zoning Appeals and for zoning amendment fees. Our Board of Zoning Appeals application fee right now is $250. We're recommending that it be increased to $350. Our zoning amendment fee is currently $350. We're recommending that move to $450. Once again, we pay each member of the board $50 to sit on it, so actually with the BZA at $350, we're already down. We also have to pay for our legal advertisements, and that type of thing. And once again, these fees are right in line with everyone else. We're not doing anything that's
Let's get jumped in. How much we jumped in?
$100 on each one.
From 7 cents to 10
From
cents.
7 cents to
per
10
square
cents
foot.
on the per square foot.
And when we come down to application for the Board of Appeals, it's from 250.
250 to 350, and then from 350 to 450. We pay $150 for a legal ad for these things, and
So
again, we're not making any money on them. We're breaking even on them, at best. And again, these haven't been looked at or done since 2007.
also move on zoning 3.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. And zoning number 4, if you recall at our last meeting, we had a discussion on the possible purchase of a printer, plotter, copier to basically replace the old large format 1980 Xerox printer that doesn't work anymore. and to bring us up to speed with other local entities. What we have, we're getting more and more digital submittals into our department. We were asked at that time, as we had a couple of examples of items that could or couldn't happen. If you recall, quite some time ago, when we first initially started looking at the CETA agreements, you asked me to try to put together some documentation. The best I could do was an 11 by 17. That was pretty difficult to see the entire areas, that type of thing. Ms. Larson Williams, when she originally sent her service area map, that's what I could get out of it. Instead of getting that, see a full-size good area for potential service area.
What was the other one?
This one was an original, so the old CETA agreement work, pass those down. We've been working with the park with Mr. Steinberg on parking lot issues over at Schneider Park. And once again, they did some survey work. What we could pull off of it here was an 11 by 17. And I just got new reading glasses and I can just kind of see the documentation on that. We can just kind of continue along, I think. As far as utilization for other people, we've had conversations with individuals with some of the road improvement projects going on. Appraisers contact us for items for the Warner Church, as an example, and it would be nice to have a couple drawings, or we've had some interest on properties along Market Avenue now, with what to do.
Like say the plotting and the development, or the proposed development in Cairo.
Oh, yeah, Cairo, sure, I've got here's a 200 scale drawing of that, but that's 130 acres. Attempting to get 130 acres on an 11 by 17 sheet. This stuff. And just anyone, if we would want to do any additional work, I can obviously see quite a bit that's going to be coming up with what's going to be happening at the Hall of Fame. The ability to do plotting and real-time assessments on what's there. Multiple issues like that. We've discussed issues with Mr. Iacino and Chief Snyder as to what it could be conceivably used for.
How many times a year do you conceivably estimate using these type of things?
That's kind of hard to tell, Trustee Gates. I think probably it could sit for a couple of weeks, maybe not being used, and then you can see a real flurry of activity. We have our historical tax maps that we can scan and store on here.
The reason why I ask, what other entities right now have one of these?
Jackson Township, Jackson Fire, Jackson Zoning is getting one, Regional Planning Commission, GIS Department. They have one, a larger model.
The cost per copy, usually if we buy these copies, how much would it be per copy?
Let's see, 30 by 30, about $5 a copy, depending upon
Black and white.
what we do for black and whites. And then it's just a matter of getting down and getting them. Essentially what we're looking at would be $8,200 from for the Canon plotter copier scanner. We've been tasked with trying to update the department and modernize things, and I think this is a step in the right direction for that. Can I sit here and say we're going to run multiple copies every day? No, I can't say that. Will I believe that we put to good use and put to use for many, many years? Yes, I do.
Mr. Gibbs, I did contact Chief Hook from Jackson Fire. They do have one, they use it extensively for mapping in their department, and they actually have just a couple of people sign that. It's just, all they do is the map work and that type of thing.
I mean, is this machine going to be shared by all the departments?
That's actually why last meeting we had asked Denny to go get the.
It has the ability to to break out, just,
Yeah, so.
you know, fire goes on, we can break it
Stain or
out.
something, we get these small ones.
Yeah, they come out of zoning.
They don't send the big ones anymore, so we can blow up sections as we need them.
Would it be helpful to you, chief?
Parks could also use it for bids,
Well, they,
plotting fields out for tournaments and things of that nature that we can't do yet.
you know, I guess we could ask different departments to chip in some, but this does have a feature on it that if we see that it's getting a lot of use from fire, it has the ability to account for what fire does, and, you know, they can pay their way on it. So I would like to recommend that we purchase this plotter copier scanner from AA Blueprint in the amount of not to exceed $8,200 from Fund 13A04.
Also moved.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I think, again, just to clarify, fire and road both said, and parks said that they would also be using this, so it'd be shared amongst all of us.
Right.
Sounds like it'd be a really useful tool.
Hey, Denny, just a point of clarification, because you take a look at the MSRP versus the special selling price.
That's lower than state.
Okay.
But we're passing a resolution not to exceed $8,900.
82.
Well, there's the setup and delivery.
No, the freight.
Okay, frame installation.
Right. Thing puts it about 8133, so I said not to exceed 8,200.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lena?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes the zoning for the year.
Going to take us to our Parks Department, Mr. Steinberg.
A couple resolutions for you gentlemen to amend just some job descriptions, to update them from where they were. For the Parks, Grounds, Facilities, and Maintenance, be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, that Resolution 13-375 be amended to include these job descriptions effective November 25 of this year.
So move on Parks number 1.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lena?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 2, same type of resolution to amend Resolution 13-374. Be hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board, Stark County, Ohio, to accept the following job description for these seasonal maintenance employees. Be it further resolved that the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, Resolution 13-374 be amended to include said job description effective also November 25.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lena?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis?
Yes.
And Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Final resolution is just to amend resolution number 07-155 related to Mr. Joe Snyder. Be it resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to amend the resolution 07-155 to pay Joe Snyder, Parks, Grounds, Facilities, part-time maintenance employee for 1 hour every time he opens or closes the gate at Yard Waste Recycling Site from Fund 01A26R. And be it further resolved that Joe Snyder will be paid an hourly rate across the board of $10.58 an hour for maintenance duties performed by the Township Parks Department from Fund 14-A-01A, Diamond Fund 01-F to 01 Alpine Schneider Fire Department from Fund 10-A-01N, and Road Department from Fund 04-B-01, in addition to his yard waste duties. The changes are effective also November 20, it should say November 25 of 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
I'm sorry, who was on that side? Mr. Lena?
Yes.
Mr. Gevasis? Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
That concludes Parks, thank you.
Thank you. It's going to take us to our law director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. One item on the agenda this evening, the George House Drive annexation has been refiled now. So take that for whatever.
Is this the one that
This is the
filed,
less than an
they
acre, they
submitted?
filed, they withdrew.
Is
I looked
this
through it
that
today.
color?
I don't see anything different from the first time that they filed,
I reviewed it all.
from my review. So I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Is this for that piece out by Fulton?
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yep.
It's the,
I thought there was still some little just snip.
there's a snippet up there at the driveway, which is the bricked-in area where the Hall of Fame statue and signs at, and a couple vehicles.
My question there, in relationship to some of the discussions that we're having,
Want me to call and see what's up?
I would recommend right now at this point that we,
I would too.
Yeah, I got it, and I thought, what,
What
why is this coming back and why now?
and why not?
So,
Especially
yeah.
with the,
I'd be happy to call Sam Slyman tomorrow and see what I can find out.
no, because we have to decide whether to object, correct?
That's correct. It's an expedited type 2, so we decide if we object or don't want to object.
past this specific one,
Mhm.
we said for the sake of maintenance, cost and so forth.
It was one we kind of were willing to.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah,
have it.
yeah. And I don't know that anything's changed from that necessarily, but we will have to object within the statutory time, which I do think our next meeting, I'll double check, but I think our next meeting would fall within that. If it doesn't, I'll certainly let you know. But you can make a decision maybe at the next meeting as to whether or not you want to object to it.
I mean, because
When is our next meeting?
Joe, currently, are we plowing and maintaining that end of that road?
He didn't know, not this year.
We did last year, we won't this year either.
Anthony, do you have a date when we got
And
that?
even though that's still technically ours,
I'm pretty sure we either got Monday or
the city can't
Okay.
take care of all of
The
it.
city of Kansas taking
Yes.
we told.
Okay.
So we've got to the ninth.
Yeah, they said they would.
They said they
We
would.
are right. We have 20 days, I believe it is, so we'll be right there.
Woodward and Woodward,
It's the 24th, yeah, we'll be all right.
Okay. Just table it.
Yeah. And then I'll just kind of follow back up on the Affordable Care Act, doing a little research over here, and it looks like what the deadline that got extended till December 5th was this deadline for us to submit our annual enrollment count, not necessarily the money. So if you want, you can do one of a couple things. Go ahead, first of all, we do need to submit our annual enrollment count, that you have to do. The other thing is the first payment, you can do it in 2 payments or do it all at once. The first payment would be due January 15th, and then the second one, November 15th, if you broke it up. If you do it all at once, it's due January 15th. So you can pass a resolution to pay it if you want. You can pass a resolution just to submit the annual enrollment count at this point in time, or you can pass the annual enrollment count and have me look into some of the CFR sections that they're referencing here on the way off chance that there'd be some kind of exception for us, which I don't think there would be. So,
But I simply would like to have an explanation, I know when I'm sending $10,000 of taxpayers' money.
I think it's a really fancy way of saying we're subsidizing the Affordable Care Act.
It's basically.
But I want to find that out.
Yeah, I'm telling you that.
That was that first paragraph I read.
Yeah, I mean, really, what as I look through all of this stuff, it doesn't give a rhyme or a reason as to why. It's just they're going to hit everyone who's a self-insured plan like we are for their covered lives. They're going to charge them this $63 per covered life.
I'm sorry, but this is absolutely dirty, it's despicable. I mean, you got taken from government to subsidized government, plus the folks in the public are gonna be paying for it too privately. I mean, this is just ludicrous.
So they're basically penalizing entities that are self-insured. I thought the whole idea
It is for
was to make sure people were insured.
Well, and I think we can certainly, we can debate the Affordable Care Act.
I don't want to debate the Affordable
Yeah.
Health Care Act, I just like to know what I'm paying.
Yeah, and the short answer for me is from what I'm looking at, I can't tell you. Other than my guess, which is that it's just another way to subsidize and pass things on down the way. That may not be right, there may be some great reason for this. I don't see it from what I'm looking at here. I just see that it's a mandate.
So when's the first payment due?
January 15th.
And I don't, no vote stands until I get an explanation, or at least the.
Then I'll have
There's a
somebody.
payment too, because, I mean, I know there's a payment included with the pending warrants to pay it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's one, that may be for going forward.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything that's due in terms of money, your deadline's January 15th. If it's already in there, then I think you have to address that issue as well.
I can always ask.
What did I miss?
I can always ask somebody from Huntington if they can provide a better explanation. I know everybody's struggling with the Affordable Care Act. Because as far as,
The one thing that's certain is, according to what I'm seeing here, you do need to submit your annual enrollment count. That you do need to do.
And we have till January 15th to submit.
And then you will have till January 15th to submit your payment. And that payment can be one of two ways. It can be $52.50 per covered life on January 15th, and then $10.50 per covered life on November 15th of next year, or all upfront $63 per covered life on January 15th. We can give you that option, or whatever, I'm not sure, for whatever that's worth.
It's like a 90-10 payment. Very much.
Let's see what Huntington says.
Well, we need to make a motion.
Yeah, we need to
make.
amend that. Let's go ahead and vote that particular resolution. If it's what you want to do, we need a vote for Anthony's
So
purposes.
we just table it until we get the explanation.
Because you've already started voting, I think you need to have 2 no's and just shoot it down and we'll start over.
Well then,
Oh, I gotta do
bring,
this.
Well, no.
bringing that back to the roll call vote on the fiscal officer, number 5, the ACA transitional reinsurance fee. Anthony, just for the, do a complete roll call again?
Yeah, you can do it again.
Mr. Lino?
Well, I originally wasn't a yes vote, but at this point in time, may I rescind my vote instead of that yes vote, or
All I'm gonna say is you're gonna make it more complicated than it needs to be. Why don't you just
keep my yes vote?
and
then?
you keep your no, and then Scott, if you would, please.
No.
So that particular resolution has been voted down.
Correct.
So now we are introducing a new resolution. And would you like that resolution to be to simply submit the annual enrollment count?
Correct.
Okay. So that is the resolution you're voting on now that I will draft up, and it will simply say that you are voting to submit through this key reinsurance contribution deadline your annual enrollment count.
So moved. Second, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
I figured I'd be first yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Givy?
Yes. And just for the record, I want to know what the money is for.
I
I'm
understand.
not going to send somebody a $10,000 check until
Sure.
I have an explanation what it's for.
Let us work with Huntington, let me look at the CFR codes and see what we can try to figure out.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
I'll put an email.
There's nothing under communications. That brings us to the portion of the meeting for public speaks. If there's anybody in the crowd that wishes to address the Board of Trustees, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll be granted 3 minutes. Mr. Barr? Nobody else?
My name is Roy Barr, Meadow Lake Golf Course. We're on 39th Street, 1211 39th Street, Northeast Canton. Even though those chairs are padded, they get awful hard. I want to bring you an update on the letter I hand-delivered about a month ago. I also hand-delivered a letter to the county commissioners and the city council. So far, I have received a reply from the county administrator who referred the letter to the Stark County engineer. I have not heard from the city of Canton. So that's what I know so far, and briefly talked to Mr. Lino down at the courthouse a couple days ago. So I'm here to listen.
Mr. Barr, I'm going to start by, we did draft a letter that was mailed within the last day or two to you. We did meet collectively, myself, Joe Icino, representatives from the engineer's office. Commissioner Richard Regula was present at the meeting. Also, the Kansas City engineer was.
Two engineers from the city.
Two engineers from the city of Canton. We did meet with them and turn it over to Joe to give a little bit more detail exactly what was discussed, because there was some
topographical things and some other things discussed that we outlined in our response letter we just mailed back to you. We'll probably have it in your mailbox tomorrow. But since you're here, we might as well go ahead and give them the gist of it.
I was instructed by our board to coordinate a meeting with all the other entities that are involved in this drainage area. After getting them all together, county engineers, two of them, a hydraulic engineer and the deputy engineer, the city engineer and the hydraulics engineer from the city, Commissioner Regula. They had brought plenty of maps of the areas and drainage areas. They answered a lot of questions about the widening of Market Avenue. The city did. They answered questions about the sizing of the pipe, about how much water is going through that area, where it's coming from. They answered the questions that you had about doing something across Plain Center and tying into the Martindale thing, which they're still looking at that area there. As for your property, the golf course itself and the pipe, they are saying that it's private property. There's no easement there. There is no drainage easement there. They said that when the pipe was installed in 1962, the grade of the land was changed, creating a detention pond, and that's why the water's backing up. These are all not from me or not from Mr. Giovanis. These are the engineers that came to this meeting with that information. I mailed you a letter yesterday that our law director looked at and actually wrote. I filled him in on everything that went on in the meeting. But at this time, the other entities in Plain Township don't feel that it's part of our responsibility to repair or replace the pipe across the golf course.
Mr. Lino mentioned the fact about making it an open ditch. Has there been any study on that?
There was definitely a lot of things said about that through the engineers, and pretty much an agreement of all that an open ditch would work better with some either man bridges or bridges big enough to get golf carts across, on the different golf holes. That the water, there would definitely be able to carry more water at a better speed.
Was that the conclusion then that the golf course will not flood?
Well, Roy, first of all, there's no guarantee of that, because there was a couple things that we discussed there, because portions of the golf course where the pipe is beneath, the elevation has been raised, so it's making the water back up. So the raising of part of those fairways is going to have to come down to allow the water to get into the ditch. Am I not correct, Joe? If we open that up and we don't correct the elevations that were changed, the water's not going to make it into the ditch.
Well, what that'll do, Lou, between the size of the pipe and what's graded on top of it, that'll create more of a ditch line. So it'll be a lot deeper than what it is now. It'll carry a lot more water. It'll help the people to the west of them because it's creating a little bit of a bottleneck there, and that's what's backing out water up to the west before it gets to Market Avenue. Pretty much, if you would talk to the city engineer and the county engineer, they'll tell you that an open ditch will work better. That is their recommendation at this time.
The only problem is it's not feasible. Now, there is an alternative that I don't think any of us have considered. The 48-inch culvert, which is steel, is deteriorating rapidly. It's collapsed in several areas. I don't know if you've been there recently or not, but there's 4 or 5 areas that have been staked off to keep people from falling in. But that could be lined. Sorry. It could be lined with a smaller diameter that could be snaked through there. And then the 60-inch would go into the lake just a little bit further north. And the 60-inch would solve the problem of flooding, we'd have 2 culverts going across there. But the 60-inch would also help as a retention pond, which there aren't any up and down that area. We got Day Lake to the north, and that's it. And there's nothing else north of us that's going to slow that down. And I told the city engineer years ago, when they put in storm drains, catch basins, paved all the roads north of us, that, you know, you're just sending the water down to the golf course quicker. They told me that, oh, it's not going to flood, Eddie, but it gets there quicker, and it's just not enough pipe to take care of it.
I did ask them about the widening of Market Avenue.
Yeah,
They're saying their studies and their, what they came up with, that it only added 0.01% increase of water.
When they went to 2 lanes and 4 lanes over the line now.
Yeah. Well, that's easy there for them to say, but that's not the actual way it's working. And Joe Starrett was the county engineer at the time, and he's the one who advised us on this. So I'll take a look at your letter, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Varga. Is there anybody else in the crowd that wishes to address the board? That'll conclude our public speaks session. That'll take us to concerns of trustees. Is there anything about my fellow board members? Okay. Concerns of the fiscal officer, Mr. Flax?
Just like the departments, we're getting close to the end of the year with December and making sure that we get all purchase orders closed, any blanket purchase orders closed, and to limit spending to only those that are necessary items so that we have the carryovers into next year.
Okay. Approval of the minutes for November 10th, 2014, and I will so move.
Seconded?
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes. There is a need for executive session, so be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 7:24 p.m. from this regular meeting as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose and consideration of 1A, appointment of a public employee or official, 3, a conference with the law director or other retained counsel concerning pending or imminent court action.
I'll second it.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.